Ed, your mic is closed.
Good morning. Welcome. Welcome. I welcome my family. Our satsang. Welcome. I love you all and I love being here with you. This morning I was reminded of how Robert started satsang. He'd sit quietly in front of the sangha for 15 minutes or so, absolutely silent, eyes closed, hands on his lap, while I played some chanting. Then when the chanting went still, when I stopped it and gave the cue to begin satsang, he continued to be silent for a few minutes. And he opened his eyes, looked around to see who was there. Then usually started with a joke. Like, you don't exist. You're not real. Everybody laughed. I didn't know what they were laughing about. They thought it was funny. Then he'd say, smile. Don't be so serious. He'd take his fingers, go like this to show his teeth, which were broken and ruined. He said, relax. Don't be so serious. And everybody'd sort of laugh a little. Well, not everybody, I wouldn't. I'd giggle. Then he'd say again, you don't exist. They would giggle again. You don't exist, he'd say. Then he'd launch into either a story or into metaphysics, saying what you are has no name. What you are is beyond existence. Beyond the world. Satchitananda. Or some kind of God. I forget some of the names he used. But I could tell, and maybe others could tell, I'm sure they could, that what Robert was talking about was not where he was. He was much deeper than his talks. He was on a level of non-existence, the void. There were no words that would express where Robert is. But he said he was forced to use words. And people like to hear stories, so he told stories. He said it was all entertainment. And the 3,700 pages of Robert's transcripts are entertainment. People said they loved listening to him. It made them feel so calm. But he talked bullshit for 40 minutes, making up stories, concepts about reality. You are Satchitananda. Your consciousness. All metaphysics. The words don't mean anything. But they like to hear him talk in that kind of monotone voice he had that they found so soothing. Because he said, don't worry. Everything is unfolding as it should. Everything is preordained. There's nothing you can do except turn within and not react to the world, not react to your thoughts. So on one level, he was speaking, but on another level, your gut, you could feel he was talking from a different dimension. And he literally was not of this world, not of the mundane world. I used to have individual meetings with people when I was living in Los Angeles, in Northridge. We'd go out for coffee, maybe for lunch or for dinner. We'd spend an hour and a half together, maybe 2 hours. And I know most of them felt like they couldn't move after 2 hours. I asked them what they were feeling. And they said, your emptiness. Your emptiness is so welcoming. And many of them, on the way home, they had to pull over in their car and sleep for an hour or so before they continue their journey, which was exactly my experience with Robert. After being with Robert for lunch, I drove home over Topanga Boulevard, down to Santa Monica, and went to sleep for 3 or 4 hours. And then for the rest of the day, I was good for nothing. Because, truthfully said, the deeper you go, the less good you serve anyone, except to take them into the same depths of the void, non-being. Now I've gotten to the point where I can't do anything useful at all anymore. I can't do any gardening. I can't do any sweeping of the house. I can't read anything anymore. I still buy books from Amazon, and they accumulate. You people know that. Most of you do the same. You buy books you don't read, except for those who've already gone beyond books. It's too much trouble to read, to concentrate and focus. The spiritual path does that to you. It robs you of interest in the mundane world. It takes you deep into yourself. To levels you've never dreamed of. To experiences you've never dreamed of. Meeting teachers and other students you never dreamed you'd meet. When I was with Thich Nhat Hanh at the International Buddhist Meditation Center, we had the widest variety of non-functional human beings you could ever meet. There was this one guy that practiced martial arts all day long, outdoors, throwing shuriken, doing different kinds of kata, and spending hours every day staring at the sun. When everybody told him to stop doing that, it'd destroy his eyes. He kept doing it. Then strange teachers began to come, like Trungpa. I saw him arrive in a beat-up car, parked in an alley behind our center. And as soon as he got out of the car, he opened his fly and peed on the car next to him before he came onto the grounds of our center looking for a bathroom. And then there was Shakya Tenzing, who all he wanted to do, he was the head of the Shakya sect of the Tibetan Buddhist organization, hundreds of temples. And when he talked to me, all he wanted to do was know about what we American monks do for sex. Then there was Satam, a Korean monk who lived outside, not inside the building. behind the Zendo. He built a little platform upon which he put his meditation cushions and blanket. And he sat all day and all night meditating or translating from Chinese into English for the abbot Tiktinyan. He even slept in full lotus. He hardly ever moved except to eat or tend an event. So many strange people. And during that time, I would visit 5 different Zen masters: Kozan, Maizumi, Tiktianan. There were 2 or 3 others. Sansanim. There was one Chinese Zen master from Shilai Monastery in the north who was carried in visiting, carried into the room on a throne by 4 or 5, 6 students. I forgot how many. He looked totally out of it. Remind me in many ways of Robert, but I didn't know Robert back then. But he was not of this world. That was easy to see. I'll call him Shunwan for now because I don't remember his name, but it's something like that. About Shunwa, Sansanim used to say, Shunwa is very advanced, but not nearly as advanced as he thinks he is. It was a circus. On Saturdays, we had our seva to keep the center clean, orderly. And our teacher would make Vietnamese soup for everybody after our work. It was the most amazing thing to see him make the soup. Because after an hour or so of boiling, cooking, adding ingredients, and tasting the soup himself, he would be covered by sweat because the soup was so hot. It was a running joke. As 20 of us sat down for lunch after seva, and we all ate the hottest soup we had ever tasted in the world. We all had tears in our eyes. Our noses were running. Our faces felt flushed. And we were all laughing about how hot the soup was. None of us had any idea what enlightenment was. We were getting so many points of view, so many degrees and levels of teaching from so many different teachers who had completely different orientations, that it was impossible to get anything. It's almost like going on the internet now and finding so many different news sources that contradict each other. It makes no sense to ask what is truth, because it was impossible to know. There's so many sources, so many different truths, contradictory. It was a slaughter. It was tidal waves of information, spiritual ideas, practices, books, visitors, Kundalini yoga masters who chanted to create realization in us, put us to sleep. Trungpas, workshops by Ed Wertz, who was a Gestalt therapist and whose class I went to on every Thursday and practiced Gestalt therapy as part of his class, getting into feelings, articulating stories about the feelings, going deeper into the feelings. In a sense, it was a blast, but I learned nothing. I had no clue. I hadn't a clue. So I sort of gave up on Buddhism and Zen. There was so much content and so little accomplishment that I could find. It's like being in a bazaar or a mall, going from shop to shop, where there's a barker out in front of each shop, yelling out the flavor of the day of their particular shop and what you learn. Going in and listening politely, then leaving after 2 hours, after bowing or meditating or chanting. Then you'd go to the next shop, get a completely different view. That's what's the same thing as reading books. A new view every day, or searching on the internet for truth. A new view every hour. It wasn't until I ran into Robert (11 years later) that I settled down. I had found my teacher. I stayed with him for 6 years before he left for Sedona, and I visited him for 2 years. And with him, I awakened to the nature of no self. But the no self I learned was not the self I would learn about later. which is much deeper. The self that I've discovered was empty, vacuous, was the one that believed he was a human being, an entity. Because I found no entity anywhere to be a self. But I couldn't ever find a self that way anyway. Because the self is not an object. It's not in existence. It's the subject. And the subject is the one that watches everything in existence. But itself is not an object. So to find the self, you have to become a subject. And when you're a subject, looking at the subject, there's nothing to find. You just are the subject. And it's not an entity. It's more like a verb, a doing, a being, a living, a hearing, a seeing, but not a seer as an object. What I'd like you to do now is to relax as much as you can. Lean back in your chair or lie down on the ground. And as you do so, feel where there's tension in your body. And relax it. This is an exercise you'll be doing the rest of your life, even after you're realized, because tension seems to creep in whenever you don't look. It requires attention on your body to be aware of that tension and then to relax it. And when you relax it totally into relaxation, everything changes. You're no longer in the mundane world of man. You're in the world of either energies or below that into the worlds of nothingness, emptiness, or beingness. It was beingness that Nisargadatta emphasized most. That's the ground level of being, the gap. Where you're conscious, aware, but you're not aware of any objects. You can't name them. You're just aware enough to be awake, but not aware enough to be self-aware that you're an entity. It's the deepest level of existence. What Nisargadatta called beingness. And the nature of beingness is feeling absolute peace. And so intense that it's like a different kind of deeper bliss, deeper than a Shaktic bliss. It's a peace that begins to melt into something that's very subtly ecstatic. When you begin to know this state, your active life seems to disappear. Robert would sit in his chair all day long. But then he'd go walking around the park to get some exercise. But I noticed about the 5th year that I was with him, he stopped exercising when he walked in the park. Your desire to participate in life, the everyday lives of housework and chores, relationships, talking, going on the internet, slows down. And you become good for nothing. You're happy. You feel safe and secure. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. And you feel such depth, such peace. You don't want to move. Why would I want to move if I have to lose this peace? The peace that surpasseth all understanding, as Robert would say. It's all enveloping. It permeates your body. It permeates your sense of presence. It permeates your human existence field, your aura. It permeates the room. The whole room is peaceful. If you relax enough, now, right now, on the out breath, relax. Each breath, relax more. You go deeper and deeper into yourself, below the level of mind, below the level of emotions, into the core of feeling your body. But it's not really the body you're feeling. It's your own spirit you're feeling, your own aliveness. It's so wonderful to realize that you can sense your own aliveness. It's a percept. You can perceive yourself as spirit, aliveness, sentience. And when you do that, you don't want to do anything. Because this is so much deeper and more true. To do nothing except rest in yourself. Here, words make no sense whatsoever. And you know it, so you don't speak any words. Maybe on the way to this place, you're feeling energies moving throughout your body. Kundalini, Shakti. But this is deeper because it's awareness without movement of energies. And yet the aliveness is like a field itself, which has aliveness everywhere. And if you describe aliveness, it's a lot like describing energies, but it's not. It's like it's the potential for energies, the potential for movement, the potential for hearing, or for seeing, or for loving. But you're so utterly relaxed, you don't want to leave beyond that potential into actual action. And like Robert, you can learn to sit for hour after hour in yourself. Or like Ramana, year after year after year, sitting in the basement of a temple, not moving. And finally, after 18 years or so, you say to yourself, it's time to move. And you go out and you start being a teacher. Reluctantly. But it's so strange. When you pursue this path, it's all automatic. There's a time to go inward, a time to stop even going inward, and just rest in yourself. Then a time for action. And it doesn't stay constant. It's not like one trajectory. It oscillates. And each oscillation goes a little deeper into yourself. There's a state of rest at one point in your sadhana. And there's a state of deeper rest later on. Everything changes. You accept everything. You can say you accept it as the will of God or the will of self, or you can just shut up and just be. At this point, you have no understanding whatsoever. You could make up stories like Robert did, but they're just stories to point to something that others don't know yet. And it causes confusion in them because they know it's a pointer, but they don't know what it's a pointer to. You can find that pointer only by going deeper and deeper in yourself. And you ask yourself, how do you do that? And over the years, that deepening occurs no matter what you do, as long as you're interested in yourself. Later on, like Ramana or Robert or Nisargadatta, you don't want to travel anywhere because you're no longer that much aware of the external world. So no matter where you go, you feel yourself as yourself. And that's the main thing you feel. And that does not vary with place. Yes, if I were to go to La Jolla now, I would probably feel something of a kind of ecstasy because I'm near the ocean again in the sunlight with the birds. But I know the deeper part of me would stay the same in the bliss of self, in the bliss of the subject. Happy. I know even if I were in kinds of superficial pain, I would not be touched by the pain because I'm deeper than where pain would be. As the pain got deeper, it would be a bigger and bigger challenge. But there's something about being lost in yourself that makes all other experiences small and paltry in comparison. There's no need to run around and try to get somewhere. All you have to do is relax and be yourself. And that's so much easier to be said than to do. Because you always feel that you haven't attained yet. There's something not clear, something not done, a road not yet traveled. And you have to get that all out of your system before you can rest in yourself. So much of this is an automatic process. And the things that you do are sort of programmed into you, into the human body. Just like at a very young age, we're programmed to fall in love. To have sex, to have children, and raise them automatically. It's like falling off of a chair. It's all programmed into us genetically by hormones. The same thing with spirituality, except it's a much longer trip. First, you build an ego and a very substantial self, and then you abandon it and go deeper than the human self. You go deeper than the mundane world. And finally, you escape trying to understand what's going on. There's nothing to understand. It's all bullshit. There's no truth. truths are entertainment for your own level of development. And you won't hold that same truth a year from now, or maybe even 3 days from now. So let go of all those concepts and just go into yourself. Ralph, 5 or 10 minutes of Krishna Das, something calm, cool, collected.